The Eminence in Shadow Season 2 has finally returned and the edgiest protagonist Shadow is back with more of his crazy shit. Now just from the first episode alone, I can already tell that the studio definitely increased the overall quality for this season, which isn't easy. They seem to have perfected the art of taking cringy one-liners and events of the light novel and somehow turn them into really entertaining scenes. Of course, there were still some minor details and changes between the anime and the light novel. That's why in this video, I'll be going over the events that happened in Season 2 Episode 1 and I will also be explaining some of the differences or cut content between the anime and the light novel. It goes without saying, if you haven't watched episode 1 yet, here's a spoiler warning just in case. If you enjoyed this episode 1 breakdown and cut content video, be sure to leave a like and feel free to subscribe to the channel as well. Now then, Season 2 is a direct continuation of Season 1 and will likely cover the storylines that will take place in Volume 3 of the light novel. To start, Episode 1 goes over the events of the prologue and Chapter 1. The episode is also called Lawless City, which is quite a fitting name considering that the episode mostly helps to establish what kind of place this actually is. A dangerous, lawless city without any morals. There are shady people all around and the place is essentially ruled over by criminals. And as the episode progresses, we get an idea of how dangerous the city eventually becomes and it slowly introduces us to some of the major players for this upcoming story arc and even some interesting minor throwaway characters as well. So before talking about the lawless city itself, we are treated to some fan service with the opening scene of the Best Doggo Delta and the studio definitely understands their audience quite well. Regardless, the proceeding scene that takes place in the throne room is another anime original, although much of the narrative points were taken from the light novel but with some slight alterations. Basically, the setting in which Shadow receives the report from Beta was greatly changed. In the light novel, he was in his dorm room and only Beta was present, but here in the episode, it was a more significant affair with the 7 shadows being present. Even Zeta and Ita, who were only introduced much later in the light novel, had a bigger presence here. The contents of the report were also different, providing a more detailed look at the current state of affairs after the Bushin Festival. For instance, we learn more about the recent activities of the Cult of Diablos and how their presence has been greatly stunted around the Midgar Kingdom because of Shadow Garden. This provides an interesting focal point that the actions of the main characters actually have visible effects on the world, adding a layer of immersion to the overall narrative. Also, the subject of the Lawless City and the Blood Moon were given more elaboration in the episode as well, emphasizing more on the gravity of the events, although the comedic element added into it was done in such a good way and I can't believe that Sid still thinks that just pretending to follow his bullshit. The only portion of the interaction that was mostly removed from the episode was about the Oriana Kingdom and the episode doesn't really go into what has happened to the nation. But moving on, there was a major plot point that the episode removed, which is the aftermath of Shadow's battle with Iris Midgar and Beatrix, like how it impacted the Midgar Kingdom and the Bushin Festival. Instead, we only see Claire Kagano being revealed to be the winner of the Bushin Festival. Essentially, after a victory, she briefly became a celebrity, going around the kingdom to parties to give speeches and she even met with many people with power. This was how she found out about the vampire subjugation mission in the Lawless City, and it would have been nice if they kept this instance because it provides more context on how she joined the mission in the first place. Furthermore, the celebration dinner that Sid and Claire along with the events that transpired afterwards were completely removed from the episode. They did maintain some of the conversation they had about Sid's future and the mission in the Lawless City, but what we lost were some introspective moments by Sid, a minor sequence where we learn more about Goose and a better understanding on Claire's fears about her brother's future. To explain, after their dinner, they had encountered a ghoul on their way home and this caused Claire to realize the fragility of humans. She then goes on to explain how she knew that she suffered from demon possession and she worries that she will one day die from the curse, leaving Sid behind, not knowing that she has been cured by Sid a long time ago. She also mentions that she has been researching on the subject and this was actually an important story thread later in the light novel, so I wonder why the episode decided to leave out this particular moment. Anyways, the episode omitting Sid's introspective moment was weird as well, because it provided some additional context on his reasoning for agreeing to go to the Lawless City with Claire. Apparently, their conversation about the future did cause Sid to briefly contemplate about the idea, so he thought it would be fun to accumulate wealth from the lowlives in the Lawless City, and he wanted to perform his eminence in the Shadow routine by fighting the Blood Queen Elizabeth as well. And yes, although we did briefly get scenes of Sid stealing from pickpockets, we never really get an explicit answer as to why in the anime, but I have to say, seeing him let himself get pickpocketed so that he could still double the money just seems like such a boss move. That said, the episode's adaptation of the mini-plot involving Quinta and Goldie was hilarious, although some minor details like how they became good friends after the Bushin festival and their battle with the White Devil were removed. Honestly, this would have been a good scene to maintain because it helps to reinforce the wild nature and dangers of the lawless city. But I digress. The part where they both ended up becoming slaves to be sold was just so funny, and the fact they kept this mini-plot going later in the episode where Quinta and Goldie somehow escaped just made it even better. There's also another mini sequence with Scar and Pearl visiting the red light district of the lawless city, which doesn't really add anything to the story, but it was funny nonetheless. And I'm not sure if people managed to catch it. When the slavers said that they'll be receiving a student with that, it's a nice callback to season 1 when Scar became broke from betting on fights. This wasn't even found inside the light novel, and it's little details like this that makes the anime such a good adaptation. Let me know if you guys managed to catch this little detail in the episode, and did you like how they incorporated the comedy for this episode in the comments down below. In any case, after Sid and Claire arrive in the lawless city, the following sequence where he gets lost was pretty much the same with the light novel, up to the point where the moon turns red and the ghoul frenzy has begun around the city. His meeting with the vampire hunter Mary was quite similar as well, but I have to say, the anime was definitely better in showing the reaction and feelings of the scene. Seeing the way Sid just absolutely lights up after hearing the cryptic one-liners of Mary in the episode was hilarious. And later when he steals her lines word for word, using it as he goes around saving people in the city was so on brand for his character and something that this crazy Chuninbyo would definitely do. This really reinforces my belief that Sid is a psychopath, as the anime shows him laughing at the idea of making the Blood Moon event into one of his Shadow Eminence projects. But continuing on, when Shadow was going around the city, he manages to save a girl named Mary from a ghoul attack, and actually in the light novel they are interacted twice. In both times, Shadow would save her from ghouls, so I can see why the anime decided to just combine both instances into a single scene, which was a much better choice from a pacing and narrative standpoint. Also, I think it was just so dumb and funny that Shadow was repeating the one-liners of the vampire hunter Mary while adding some original content into them to get a reaction from the girl. And there's actually another nice detail about the scene with Mary. The money we see her taking out actually belonged to one of the thugs that was beating up a ghoul in the beginning of the episode, which is some amazing attention to detail and writing consistency. Having said that, we also see Shadow saving people from the Dark Knight Association, and although the episode did make it seem like he just came from the Red Light District, the actual course of events was vastly different in the light novel. What happened in the light novel was that after saving Mary, he had actually returned to the Dark Knight Association to rest and plan his next event. However, when he wakes up, he realizes the sun has not risen and the blood moon still hasn't subsided. That's because it will last for 3 days where the sun will remain hidden and shrouding the world in perpetual night with only the shine of the blood moon itself, which wasn't explained in the episode. This was why he was there to save the Dark Knights from the ghoul attack, and the girl that he rescues was named Claudia, but it was surprising this minor character was still given screen time in the episode. The episode approach definitely seemed more interesting because it helps to further perpetuate the idea that Shadow is just that overpowered, going around the city easily killing all the ghouls. Also, the event that he was planning was just him going to the Crimson Tower, looting everything inside and then defeating the Blood Queen Elizabeth. Honestly, the lawless city is the perfect place for Sid where no rules apply and he can do whatever shit he wants. With that, because Sid had disappeared, Claire started going around the city to search for him, but in the anime, much of the emotions that she experiences were unfortunately left out. It was more clearly defined in the light novel, and although we know for a fact that she does genuinely care about her brother, it would have been nice to see more of it in the anime instead of just having it happen off-screen. Regardless, the subsequent scene of her in the anime crying over the decapitated head of some random person that she thought was Sid was really hilarious. Seeing her reaction after finding out that it wasn't him, doing a complete 180 of her mood and throwing the head away was just such a Claire move. This short instance was a perfect representation of Claire's personality, a true brocon that only cares about Sid and no one else. But besides that, the meeting between Claire and the vampire hunter Mary also went quite differently in the anime as compared to the light novel. For one, after their introductions, the anime only showed them heading towards the Crimson Tower and omitted the conversation they had along the way, but it's possible that it will be adapted in the next episode, so I won't go into much detail about what they discussed. But the general point of that conversation was mostly just Mary giving some backstory on the Bloody Queen Elizabeth, explaining the legend of the Blood Moon and also some information on the vampires. Now, before I end the video, I did like the way they introduced the monarchs of the lawless city, the Snow Fox Yukime and the Tyrant Juggernaut, not giving too much on them while leaving more to be revealed for the upcoming episodes. Also, the ending part where Shadow was monologuing while we get scenes of the various groups currently in the Lawless City was such a good callback to the ending scene from the first episode of season 1, but they somehow made it look even better. We even get a glimpse of Rose Oriana and her team in the Lawless City, and closing the episode with a three-way deadlock was such a godly frame. So that was everything that has happened in the episode along with the differences it has with the light novel. The studio really did an amazing job with the first episode of season 2, and it's obvious they took what made the first season great and improved many of the established ideas, especially the way they incorporated comedy aspects into scenes while still maintaining much of the serious tone of the episode. Even the voice acting was a big step up. They were definitely having a ton of fun, and it just helps to add another layer of entertainment to the series. However, with how much that has happened just from this first episode alone, I can understand why people thought it was too fast-paced, showing the Blood Moon shortly after Sid and Claire arrive in the Lawless City, the ghouls starting to attack people and people dying everywhere. But I can assure you that as a light novel reader myself, the episode did not take away too much of the narrative essence and was quite faithful to the source, so if they maintain this level of quality, the upcoming episodes will be just as good if not better. But yeah, that's everything, and what do you think of the first episode? Did it meet your expectations and are you excited for future episodes? Feel free to share your thoughts down below. I know I am personally looking forward to see more Chunibyo stuff from Sid, and for Anime Onis, it's just going to get even better. If you enjoyed this episode breakdown and comparison video, don't forget to leave a like or subscribe to the channel and hit that notification button as well for more content like this in the future. Thanks for watching, and as always, stay safe everyone.